course, which every Mew deck has, but he also is playing Pokemon Catchers, trying to flip some coins, gust some Pokemon with that item card. And for a little bit of added flipping, he's also even got the Silene in here as a new addition from Astral Radiance.
Very nice. Hey, I mean, a high roll version of Mew means that this is going to be an entertaining matchup, an entertaining stream for everyone watching there at home as well. We saw Mew yesterday in a couple of our matchups as well, and even those were very riveting games too, so I'm really excited to see this play out.
It looks like Nick actually did just win the flip, pointing to himself, says, I want to go first.
Of course.
We see Brian here as well, who's going to be playing the Arceus Inteleon, very popular deck that, from the Brilliant Stars format, it seems like once Astral Radiance came out, players were really going to start to favor the Origin form Palkia V-Star, which they did for a while at the Milwaukee Regional Championships and also in Melbourne previous to that. But now here at NAIC, quite a few players have brought it back out, said, hey, this deck was really good last format, gotta still be solid now. Brian Kim sitting at 9-1-1 with the Arceus Inteleon.
Yeah, performing extremely well heading into this day 2 as well. I think with this deck, I mean, even though it has similar engines of what we have seen so many times on this stream before, it's still really interesting, as I talked a bit about yesterday, just to see these micro decisions that these players are making, because there's so many options with the Arceus V-Star decks. You know, you have your Starbirth ability, or V-Star power, that you can only use once per game. So you have to be searching out 2 of any cards that are very important.
That right at the top of the prize cards is terrible to see for Brian Kim. Roxanne and Path to the Peak. That is his main strategy of how to come back in this matchup.
Probably the 2 cards you would be searching for, Chip, off of that.
And they're at the top of the prize cards to make it even worse.
Oh my goodness. You know, Chip, fun fact, I've watched these streams so often, and I feel like most of the time the cards that the players need are in the top, so I have started taking my prize cards from the top in all of my matchups.
A little superstitious here?
Yes, absolutely. All right, so we are starting, of course, on Nicholas here. Mew V in the active position and getting that Battle VIP pass straight off for the turn 1. Of course, what you always want to see for a Mew VMAX deck, and searching out those 2 Genesects and just benching him right away with that Battle VIP pass, which is great.
Looks like Nick has a Cremomatic here, debating what to discard. Looks like a switch, and it is a heads hit.
The high rolling begins here with that heads, being able to search out any card from the deck.
And looks like Battle VIP Pass will be the grab. I actually think Nick top-decked the first Battle VIP Pass to start the turn.
Wow.
So
More high rolling.
Very solid turn going here. 4 Pokemon in play already, and I think he's even got an Ultra Ball if he wants it.
That's great, and it's really cool to see the pace Nicholas is playing right now. You can tell that he's very comfortable with this deck.
Sure. Comfort, definitely an important factor. He's got some powerful cards in this hand, so let's see how he plays it out. He doesn't want to discard Power Tablet or Alessa Sparkle to the Ultra Ball, so we'll just see the Genesect drawing 2, and that's another couple cards that he doesn't really want to discard. So he's actually going to just pass, not even use the second Genesect, wants to hold on to both Silene and that Fusion Strike energy in hand.
Absolutely, leaving it to Brian now to kick off the turn 1 as well with that Quick Ball. Quick Balling out the Dunsparce, which of course is not really that relevant in this matchup. There is no weakness that we're really worried about here for that Arceus. So an easy Quick Ball option there for Brian to search out a basic Pokemon from the deck, eyeing up that Arceus V, and looks like that is going to be the pick here.
And I'll be interested to see what else this hand looks like for Brian. You always have a couple of options as the Arceus player on these turns. Do you get an attachment to your Arceus V, or is it just a turn 1 keep calling potentially in order to fill the board with more and more Sobbles?
Yeah, I think what is unfortunately happening right now is Brian is seeing the prizes. Looking through that deck, you know, sometimes when you know something that is crucial as prize, you keep looking and hope it's not prize, and then you finally have to realize, okay, well, I need to definitely work around that.
Yeah, maybe I just missed it. Maybe it's hiding in here.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. I do that all the time. All right, so we are seeing the Quick Ball, discarding the Manaphy to the Quick Ball in order to search out a Sobble here. We've talked about optimal turns for this Arceus deck, and usually, of course, that's, you know, Pokemon out, setting up your draw engines for the future, and then also, of course, that very crucial energy attachment as well.
So Brian taking a moment, just checking the prizes a little bit more. He also prized a Shady Dealings, Intellion, and Sharon's Care. All of these cards are really important, so seeing those in the prizes is not something he loves to see, but they're not bad things to take when you do eventually take prizes, but...
Well, unfortunately, also a Marnie is in the prize cards
True,
too.
yeah.
So, I mean, 2 hand disruption cards, which are very pivotal in this matchup against Mew VMAX because you want to limit them as much as possible. You try to stop them with the path to the peak so they cannot use their Genesec's abilities to just draw infinite cards. But unfortunately, that is also in the prize card. So 2 hand disruption cards and the path to the peak is going to be kind of brutal here.
Really great for Brian that he was able to get down the second Arceus V-Star and has the perfect research for 7. Yeah, you really want to get down the 2 Arceus V in this matchup because Nicholas can really easily threaten just a boss's orders KO on 1 Arceus V. So that would mean Brian wouldn't have an option to respond with a V-Star on the next turn. So really solid that Brian was able to find that second V and also has Big Charm.
Yeah, and deciding to do both Big Charm and the double Turbo Energy onto that bench to Arceus V and then just passing it over to Nicholas now.
Nicholas has plenty of options here. We see Power Tablet being played. Nice. Has Ultra Ball and Quick Ball, which can get any of these various Pokemon that he plays. And this will determine, I think, yeah, Nicholas wants to go for boss's orders this turn, I feel like. Discarding the other 2 supporters in hand. He wants to target down an Arceus if he can.
Yeah, I mean, Nicholas, as we said, is playing so quickly and confidently, and sometimes that can kind of set you off, I guess, if you're the opponent. You're kind of on the back foot, and if, you know, Nicholas, especially playing such a powerful deck as well that goes quickly, hits for an incredible amount of damage, and then, you know, of course, setting up that boss play too, we could see Brian have to respond kind of on the back end of a really strong turn.
So getting the choice belt is huge because Power Tablet has already been played. So now Nicholas would be able to boss his orders and KO the Arceus V with the Big Charm and the energy on it.
Oh, wow. Taking out the Arceus V with the Big Charm is huge because it is not a V-Star yet.
Right.
So, of course, the V-Star having more hit points is going to get even more boosted with that Big Charm. So taking out that threat off the board now would be great.
Oh,
one catcher.
There's one.
First
Here's
fail.
another one.
2 catchers here. That one is a hit.
Huge hit
That
there
is
from Nicholas. This will bring up Arceus into the active spot, and he's not even done. Has more cards to draw with Genesect.
Absolutely. Another Fusion Strike system into a couple more cards, and then the free retreat off of that Mew V into the knock there on the Big Charm Arceus V, as we were just discussing, which is a huge, huge play for Nicholas and a bad situation for Brian to be in now.
Yeah, this is looking a little tough. The only way Brian can pull off an attack this turn is through Melanie accelerating an energy into play. He can pull it off pretty easily thanks to Starbirth and Shady Dealings, but you're just going to be hitting into this Mew VMAX. You're not going to be taking a knockout on a 2-prize Pokemon through like a boss's orders or anything like that.
Absolutely, and the Mew VMAX, of course, with that 0 retreat cost, allows it to just, you know, take some damage and then jump out of the active position into a fresh attacker. So that is definitely, you're just working through walls of Mews and walls of your opponent drawing into pretty much every card they usually need for the turn. So that is extremely difficult to deal with.
Quick Ball does discard the water energy, so that signals to me we could be seeing the Melanie come out. Another Arceus V getting established here because Brian wants to throw extra energies onto that Pokemon off of the Trinity Nova this turn so that he has another attacker powered up.
Yeah, that is going to be very, very important. All right, here we go. We do see the Melanie to retrieve that water energy from the discard, attach it, and then Brian is going to be able to draw 3 cards into hand. Looks like an Arceus V, an Ultra Ball, and a water energy.
Yeah, this is really smart sequencing from Brian, using the Melanie before using the Starbirth V-Star power because he wants to see what he gets off those 3 cards and then make the decision, okay, now what do I need off of Starbirth?
Absolutely. Always go for the random cards and then seek out what you want after you get those cards because it just makes sense. Okay, so we are in the Starbirth now, looking through Nicholas's discard pile currently.
Maybe just trying to gain some deck knowledge. Silene's not a card you always expect to see, so the fact that Nicholas has discarded it is something Brian will definitely take note of moving through the rest of this game and into the future games.
Yeah, that is definitely really important to keep track of Mew VMAX's discard pile, just because there are so many relevant cards. You know, you have to track how many power tablets are they down, how many switching cards are they down. A lot of important factors that you're weighing in on in this matchup.
So Brian grabs the double turbo and the big charm here, and I think he's just going to try to make this Arceus V-Star as difficult as possible for Nicholas to KO. But something that could be a little scary is the fact that Nicholas already has a Fusion Strike energy in play. So if he can find Alessa Sparkle plus attach a Fusion Strike energy for turn, play a power tablet, he'd be able to get a one-hit knockout with Melodious Echo.
Absolutely, yeah. Brian does play 2 big charms here, so having that big charm now on the active Arceus V-Star. Ooh, tossing out that collapsed stadium, an incredible stadium card to play in this Mew matchup because it does limit your bench to only 4 Pokemon for each player.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised that Nicholas discarded the Meloetta. I kind of expected him to go for the Melodious Echo this turn. He does have some search cards in hand, so as long as he can find a stadium, he can get rid of Collapsed and put another Pokemon in play. So maybe just wanting to value the draw of Genesect first, which definitely makes sense. Can't fault him for that.
I think Nicholas has luck on his side thus far in the match, so that might just be the strategy here. So we are going to see that hit with the Trinity Nova from the Arceus V-Star for Brian for 180 damage, and then accelerating those 3 energy on to the benched Arceus Vs in this case. And then now we're just shuffling up and back to Nick.
And Nick does have, I think, another Pokemon catcher in hand. Here we go, another big flip. Ooh, that one is Tails.
Tails.
So Nick didn't have to necessarily Melodious Echo KO the active this turn. He also could have chased down an Arceus V on the bench. He only has 4 prizes remaining, so he just needs to take 2 knockouts.
2 power tablets in the hand right now and an escape rope.
Okay. Makes things a little awkward. He does discard all of those searching options, so we'll have to replace the stadium and find another way to get Meloetta if he wants Melodious Echo this turn.
Yeah, so we are going to see the evolution into the Mew VMAX on the bench here. Can't really dwindle down that hand anymore because there's a lot of important cards in there. Oh, we see the Echoing Horn.
Yeah. Can't play it, though.
Oh, yes, you can't.
Yeah, good catch from Brian there.
That was a very good catch.
And just wants to play 1 tablet, drawing 2. Boss's Orders is one of them, and that will bring up an Arceus V. So this can get Nick 2 prize cards here, and he still gets to draw some more.
So many Fusion Strike systems to get through. All right, so retreating out of that Mew VMAX into a fresh Mew VMAX to take this knockout on the Arceus V here, down another 2 prize cards with only 2 prize cards left for Nicholas now in this matchup.
And this is the situation where Brian would love to have access to Roxanne and Path to the Peak, and they are just hiding in the prizes.
That is so unfortunate. So we are going to see an Ultra Ball, discarding an Ultra Ball and a Water Energy to search for any Pokemon from the deck. So there is another Path to the Peak that Brian is eyeing on the top, he moved to the top of the deck there, eyeing down, knowing that there is a Path to the Peak in deck, but also
and it looks like it'll just have to be the Marnie. So
yeah,
Roxanne's not the option. Still wants to disrupt Nicholas while he can.
Chip, what did you call it yesterday? Budget Roxanne?
Yeah,
that's what we're doing
Roxanne
right now.
at home, right?
Roxanne at home. Yeah, so that Ultra Ball did search out that Shady Dealings Inteleon, and with that Shady Dealings Inteleon ability, that was the search for the Path to the Peak and the Budget Roxanne, Marnie.
No, Marnie is definitely very powerful in its own right. A super strong supporter card that players will play, even without Roxanne existing. But it's just, Roxanne would be so much better in this spot if Brian only had access to it.
Yes, that Roxanne, of course, kind of limited a little bit because, you know, you can only play it in the late game when your opponent has taken at least three prize cards. So here we go, off the Marnie. Brian drawing 5 cards, and Nicholas is going to be drawing 4.
And Nick did draw Boss's Orders, so Brian really needs to evolve this Arceus on the bench and does have the evolution. Okay.
into a level ball now, searching for a Pokemon 90 HP or less, looking to eye down that Drizzle and taking out the Drizzile from the deck.
Can use Shady Dealings to get another trainer out if he wants.
Yep.
Yeah, looking over here at what Nick got off the 4 cards, it's really not much. Boss's Orders is great, but Switch, Oricorio, and Battle VIP Pass aren't going to be super helpful.
Yeah, definitely. And now Nicholas with that hand of power tablets is now at the bottom of the deck.
That's right.
As well, off of that Marnie and just into a fresh 4 cards. We see a Boss, an Oricorio, and a Battle VIP Pass. Didn't get to see that 4th card.
It looks like a Switch hiding in there as well.
Okay.
So Drizzile, Shady Dealings grabs another trainer.
Here we go.
Maybe just wants to grab a level ball for the next turn, prep for a Drizzile, or scoop up net to reset this Shady Dealings Intellion. That could be an excellent option.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Ooh, I actually think what Brian is thinking here is, do I need to get level ball for a Sobble so that I can fill my bench so that Echoing Horn is not a play that Nicholas has available?
That's actually very true because Collapse Stadium has now been bumped for the Path to the Peak. So benches are back to 5 instead of 4 Pokemon. That might be what we see. That's exactly what just happened. So level ball for the Sobble onto the bench right away for Brian Kim.
And Nicholas revealing the Echoing Horn last turn by accidentally playing it when Collapse Stadium was in play gives Brian the knowledge that that card is in his list, and now Brian is adequately playing around that card by filling the bench up. Let's see, what's Nicholas' top deck? It is another Battle VIP Pass.
Oh, no.
That is not helpful at all.
So 180 damage was the Trinity Nova damage from the Arceus V-Star. Back to Nicholas. As we said before, this is a hand fresh off of a Marnie that was initiated by Brian. So these are not cards that were there before. A lot of good cards went to the bottom of the deck now, and Nicholas just kind of being stuck here with a lot of cards that are not really of use and on a path to the peak as well. This is what you want to see when you are an Arceus player. You want that path to the peak and Marnie to stick.
It was looking really bleak for Brian, I'm not going to lie.
Yes,
but
it was.
This combo of Marnie and Path has left Nicholas with just very few options, and all he can do is retreat and attack. Doesn't even play a single card out of this hand.
Oh my goodness. And then when you are the VMAX player, you know, this is what you don't want to see, of course. This is where all of your momentum is kind of stunted. And it can get into a very sticky situation here because now that Mew VMAX has that 180 damage and is within range of a knockout here for 3 prize cards. The other one on bench having a ton of damage on it as well.
And this is a huge grab for Brian. The Sharon's Care can pick up this active Arceus V-Star, clear this damage out of play. And that way, Nicholas doesn't have an easy option to just Boss's Orders and KO for the win on the next turn. It's going to be a big combo of cards for Nicholas to try and pull off the win. And with Path to the Peak in play, it's going to be so much more difficult.
All right, here we go. We see that Sharon's Care scooping up that Arceus in the active position with all of those damage counters on it, and then just promoting straight into the fresh Arceus V-Star. Right away. This one will be hitting for more damage now because there is no double turbo energy attached to it. And then Brian, of course, opting to energy attach there to the Drizzile on the bench because there is always that option to attack with Aqua Bullet on the Shady Dealings Intellion as well.
Yeah, I love getting to work in an Aqua Bullet attack when I can when I play this deck because it is just so strong to utilize a one-prizer with 160 hit points. But for now, Brian's just swinging with Arceus, taking a 3-prize knockout halfway to winning the game. And Nicholas top decks the Genesect, which is not going to be useful. And Nicholas concedes.
Scooping it up here. It was looking so positive for Nicholas until, of course, that powerful play of the Marnie and the Path to the Peak, what you always want to see as an Arceus player, or just a player in general playing against Mew.
What an incredible comeback from Brian Kim. He was down so far on the board position, but we just saw in that match the power of Path to the Peak. Mew VMAX is so reliant on utilizing Genesect's V's Fusion Strike system ability, and when you cut them off of using that ability, they just don't have access to all their combo pieces. Brian was able to fight back and win that game.
Absolutely, and Mew VMAX being such a strong deck, it just has a lot of brunt force to it. It's quick, it's fast paced, it sets up extremely quickly. And Brian really, even though his deck is also very quick, but you kind of have to stunt your opponent a little bit with a early path to the peak if you can.
Right.
That hand disruption after your opponent starts gathering those cards into hand to kind of limit their ability to draw or maybe play into a dead hand, as we just saw, because that's kind of what you have to capitalize on when your deck is just slightly slower than your opponent's.
Yeah, you mentioned momentum in that last game, Boo, and that was a huge part of it because Nick had so much momentum going into those closing turns, but there was really a shift after that Marnie was played. Brian found the path, was able to get back into the game, and Nicholas, I think, is starting with a mulligan here in game number 2 as we are setting up and getting ready.
Yeah, often you can see the momentum shift as well if a Mew VMAX player isn't properly conserving their resources as well. If you're burning to your deck if you're burning through your deck too quickly and playing down things that you don't really need to be playing down at the time, but you get a little bit greedy and you want to draw more cards. But unfortunately, that can really hurt you in the late game.
Nothing too terrible in the prizes there for Brian when we just saw them. It looks like Nick does have a basic now, so we'll get to see some prizes on his side. Genesect, Boss, not the best, but
I
honestly,
love that switch.
Yeah, good old school switch from the Diamond and Pearl era with Lucario and Turtwig featured. Definitely a fan.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a really, really great art. All right, so what are you thinking going into this next match?
I'm thinking it's pretty good to be Nick and open a Battle VIP pass.
Once again. I don't think we've casted a single Mew VMAX so far where they have not opened a Battle VIP.
And
so
you can just see why this deck plays 4 copies of the card. It's so powerful to get your engine going. It is the deck that can certainly have the most powerful turns of any deck in the format. You just need more Pokemon in play. You need to draw a bunch of cards, and this has got a great turn written all over it, right?
That is huge. 2 quick balls. Oricorio, kind of a damage modifier, taking 20 damage away from all Fusion Strike Pokemon as well. Do you think that's super relevant in this matchup? Because it was just discarded here from Nicholas.
It can definitely be a nice card to have because it makes it so Arceus V-Star cannot boss and one-hit KO a Genesect V sitting on the bench. Puts them out of range of that. So the fact that Nicholas had to discard it, I think he had a couple of cards in hand he didn't want to lose. Looks like it was an Alessa Sparkle and a Fusion Strike Energy. Oh,
we're going to see the second Battle VIP
Must
pass
be nice.
For turn 1. Wow, into another Genesect V with that Fusion Strike system.
And you can just see why this deck loves going first. Even though when you go second, everyone loves to talk about Mew, the power it has going second with Alessa Sparkle and Meloetta. Just going first allows you to get through the deck so much more efficiently throughout the rest of the game. You get a whole other turn that your opponent really isn't going to be able to do whenever they go first because so many other decks are so reliant on their supporters to get set up.
It's also actually risky as well going first when you are, or sorry, going second when you are Mew VMAX, just because your opponent might actually have a path to the peak in the starting hand. And if you get pathed and you don't have a great hand or a stadium to bump, that could be detrimental.
And speaking of not great hands, Brian just has to play the collapsed, attach an energy and pass.
This could be.
Oh, and does Nick have it?
I think
he does.
Yes.
Alessa Sparkle throws 2 Fusion Strike energies out of the deck into play. I think there's a Mew VMAX already sitting in the hand, and Brian is just going to scoop it up. We're going to a game 3.
Brian saw immediately what was happening. I think the pace of play there for Nicholas kind of hinted at what was about to happen, and Brian's like, all right, let's head into this game 3. So even though game 1, it wasn't extremely slow, it was actually not. It was pretty quick, but that was, of course, much quicker there. Unfortunately for Brian, having just nothing really in hand, in the opening hand, is just detrimental.
Yeah, this matchup is one that can go pretty quickly. Most of the time, the games in this specific matchup only last about 4 or 5 turns, maybe. And especially if it goes the Mew player's way, you usually want them to be over in 4 turns. You're going to just go boss KO, and boss KO.
Yeah, absolutely. Even with those, I think it was one mulligan.
Yep.
Even with that, unfortunately for Brian, just not able to get set up there. So we are going to be heading into a game 3, which is always exciting to see kind of who is going to come out on top. A lot of our matchups today have been heading into game 3s, which is cool.
That's right, yeah. Brian will most likely be choosing to go first, I would imagine. For the first time in this set, we've seen Nicholas go first 2 times. So we'll have to see how strong this opening hand can be. And then also, what does Brian do, or sorry, Nicholas do going second? Can he pull off the dream, Melodious Echo, Pokemon Catcher, all those things that Mew players dream about?
All right, looks like there is a Sobble in the active, and let's check out prize cards.
Oh, 2 Sparkles and a Catcher. That is not ideal from Nick. He does have a couple more catchers to work with, and also does have the third Alessa Sparkle, but it's now just a one of in the deck, which means it will be potentially difficult for him to find on turn 1.
Yeah, that is probably frustrating to see here if you're Nicholas going through your deck. All right, so we are starting here on Brian with a quick ball, discarding a Pal Pad and searching out a basic Pokemon from the deck, opting for the Sobble here, get that set up. As Chip said before in our round 1, we need to see 2 Arceus here on the bench.
Ideally, it's a little bit safer now going first because Nick has to hit a catcher head. So getting at least a Sobble down means that Nick can't force this Arceus up with an escape rope. And obviously, if he's playing boss's orders, that means he can't play Alessa Sparkle. So Nicholas is going to be relying on a catcher heads if he wants to target down the only Arceus in play. But, you know, Brian's turn is still going on. We'll see if he has an opportunity to get down that second Arceus V.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe this just going first gives Brian a chance to just optimally set up here, you know, not having to worry as much about the knockouts and be able to focus on different parts of the deck, including that draw engine, to just play into exactly what he needs for his future turns in order to outlast this Mew VMAX deck, because even though it was looking grim, things changed real quick here, which
definitely.
is what happens as well when you're playing against a 3-prizer deck of Mew VMAX versus just a 2-prizer deck of Arceus V. That is sort of an advantage you have as well. You have a little bit more time to play with.
A bunch of Pokemon here in this hand, and a Pokemon catcher. That is a Tails.
It is Tails.
This is a little awkward because Nick has a Mew V in hand, but that is not a card you want to bench.
Oh, is that the... Oh, no, that was the Silene, I think, draw.
Yeah,
I thought it was
so.
Alessa's, but it was not.
So Nick's not going to get the dream start in this game. He's not getting Melodious Echo KO on the Arceus. He's got to play it a little slower. Attach for turn, draw 1, and Battle VIP pass is an excellent one to hit.
Yeah, that's probably the best one to hit in this situation here, Nicholas. Now, the second time top decking that Battle VIP, high rolling is on Nicholas's side here today, which I'm sure he's very happy about. So drawing those 2 basic Pokemon out from the deck, opting for another Genesect V for that draw power, and then the Meloetta as well with that Melodious Echo.
So Nicholas does have the Silene in hand. I wonder if he would ever play that to put the catcher back, or if he just wants to hold off maybe for tablets later. And yeah, he does think better of it. Just draws 2 here, maybe looking for the Sparkle, which he doesn't find.
There was another Battle VIP.
Yeah, already has the 5 Pokemon on the bench, so be a great target for a Cramomatic, I think.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
So Scoop Up Net can clear this Sobble out. We are back over to Brian now, looking for an Arceus V-Star, and has a Research, which is a good start.
Having to discard that Sharon's Care, but still drawing into a fresh 7 cards here. Yeah, at this point, you know, you need cards in your hand, so you got to discard what you need to get where you need to go. So here we go. We do see the evolution to the Arceus V-Star in the active position. It does have the Big Charm and a Water Energy attached right now. So in order to carry out this Trinity Nova, all we're going to have to see is that double Turbo Energy being attached this turn, which is not difficult to do when you have access to your Starbirth V-Star power ability.
Yep, not difficult to find at all. We're going to start with Shady Dealings, though. Maybe eyeing up a Quick Ball. Wants to get another Arceus in play to accelerate energies onto. does have Evolution Incense in hand. This can find an Inteleon on the next turn, potentially, or an Arceus V-Star to evolve the bench. And I actually do think I saw the second copy of Big Charm in this hand, which would be a great thing to put down on the benched Arceus V.
Here we go. So we are seeing the Quick Ball discarding that water energy to search out another basic Pokemon and going for another Arceus V here on bench to just start getting that set up. And if there is that Big Charm, that would be great as well. That would definitely be huge.
Make it as hard as possible for Nicholas to take a 2-prize KO this turn.
Yeah, absolutely. Play to all your advantages. Make sure that your opponent has to have all of the outs. All right, so we are seeing that V-Star power being activated, Starbirth V-Star ability to search out any 2 cards, and you do not have to reveal them either. So we are going to see, of course, that double turbo we talked about earlier to be able to get that Trinity Nova off with that 180 damage. What is the other card that we might be seeing here, Chip?
Yeah, I was just thinking this as Brian pulls it to the front. I think this is an excellent turn for Collapsed Stadium. Nicholas has a full bench. You're going to be knocking out one of his Fusion Strike Pokemon. If you can use Collapsed Stadium to remove another one from play, that means that Fusion Strike system is going to be much weaker this coming turn.
That's really interesting, too. So we do know there's Collapse Stadium and Path to the Peak, but of course, as you said, the Collapse Stadium does discard the Pokemon. So if your opponent does have that counter stadium to just bump it, at least you have halted their actions a little bit.
Brian's actually going to grab an Arceus V, it looks like there. What also putting the Collapse Stadium in play now does is it forces a stadium replacement from Nick, which means that's one less stadium in the deck for when you play Path to the Peak later on.
That's very true. That is very true. You want force your opponent into all of the outs again here. So that is what we have right now, just the double turbo and another Arceus is what was chosen off of that Starbirth. We are going to see the bench of the Arceus V, so now having 2 that were freshly benched this turn, and then the double turbo attached to the Arceus V-Star for the Trinity Nova for the knock as well, 180 damage, and then being able to accelerate 3 basic energy cards to your V Pokemon in any which way you like. So they don't all have to go to one Pokemon. You can put 1 on Arceus V, 2 on the other Arceus V if you'd like, which is actually what we saw last game from Brian.
And he's actually holding off on putting Big Charm in play as well, because if Nicholas takes a Boss's Orders KO, he knows that he can Big Charm the other Arceus V and just make 2 Arceus V-Stars with 310 hit points. Yeah,
it's essentially like Brian is just duplicating his options right here on the bench, so that if Nicholas chooses the one with 2 energies, then he just evolves the V-Star on the bench, attaches another energy, and now has the Big Charm on an even bulkier Pokemon. So it's not just wasting a Big Charm, essentially, if there is a boss play.
So Nicholas is going to start with Ultra Ball here. He did prize the second Mew VMAX. He does only play 2 copies of the VMAX. So maybe he'll grab a Meloetta here. I think that his only realistic way, well, maybe I shouldn't say only realistic way. His only way to knock out the active is with Alessa Sparkle plus attach a Fusion Strike Energy, Melodious Echo for the KO. But he also could get the Boss's Orders KO onto one of these Arceus Vs on the bench. So I like the decision to just go ahead and get Meloetta. This way you have a couple of different lines open, depending on what you draw from your Fusion Strike systems here. Yeah,
luckily for Brian, in this matchup, you don't have to worry too much as long as you're off to a good start, as Brian is right now. With so many Arceus V out. What'd you see, Chip?
A little bit of an awkward draw. A couple of stadiums and the Fusion Strike Energy. So you like to get the Fusion Strike Energy now, but we know there's 2 Alessa's prize, so there's only 1 left in the deck for Nicholas to draw, and he's having to burn a stadium here in order to do it.
One thing we did not talk about in Nicholas's list, though, is he does play Pumpkaboo as well, so that is another option. I know the bench is full right now, but later down the line, you know, burning this Rose Tower, there is still options to be able to bump a stadium with a potential Pumpkaboo down the line.
This is looking like Nick is going for a Silene play potentially. He was eyeing it up, brought the Pokemon catcher to the front of the discard pile, and we will see it. Needs to hit one of these heads. First one's a Tails, second one is a Tails as well. So that was Nick's 1 supporter for turn, and he got no value from it.
The luck has been burning down here. Unfortunately, we see the power tablet come into play, but you can see on Nicholas's face right now the frustration, I think, with that play.
Yeah, this is gonna turn out to be a pretty weak turn. He can Technoblast and is still dealing 240 damage. But this is really what Brian is just fine seeing. If Nick is not taking knockout after knockout every single turn, if this game goes longer than the 4 or 5 turns that Nicholas would love to make it, Brian is going to be the player who's favored.
Yeah, and actually in Brian's list as well, there is a quick shooting Inteleon too, which could potentially come up later down the line as well to maybe add up the damage that you could potentially need to knock out these VMAXs, especially if you're thinking about, well, really, with the fusion energy, though, on the Mew VMAX,
True.
You can't actually ping it unless there is none attached, really.
Right. If there's a double turbo on a Mew VMAX.
Yes.
It can also be really nice with the quick shooting to target a Genesect V, and you can KO it with an Arceus that has a double turbo
and there's
on
options.
it. Right?
There's options. So I did definitely just check the list, and that is a huge tech that could potentially be used as well for Brian. And these Drizziles are just going right now. You know, like we said, there's no threat to the Drizziles. When you're the Mew VMAX player, you're not going to want to be knocking out one prize Pokemon. You're already sort of on the back foot playing against a 2-prizer, and leaving that much a vulnerability with those attackers all over the board state is just not what you're going to be wanting to do. So Brian just has full range of his draw engine in his deck with those Drizziles and those Inteleons, either the Shady Dealings or that quick shooting Inteleon as well, whichever strategy he chooses to play. Path to the Peak and the Marnie play, again, what we saw in the first matchup of these players that was so powerful, and we are going to see it again and see if it sticks for Brian.
And Brian doesn't know it yet, but he just put a stadium card on the bottom of the deck for Nick. So it is going to be much less likely and much more difficult for Nick to find that this turn.
Absolutely, because even if a path comes into play, you could also have it off the top deck potentially, but as you just said, Chip, one of those is now at the bottom of the deck. So we are going to see that damage being dealt here from the Arceus V-Star, 180 damage with that double turbo energy attached onto the Mew VMAX, now putting it in range of a knock.
Rotom Phone will be played to start with for Nick, seeing what option is available.
Yeah, I didn't get to see what the hand was off of the Marnie. I don't know if you got to look at it, Chip, but...
I did not notice a stadium. That is
okay, well,
step
that's
number
important.
one. Right.
Step number one, absolutely. All of these Fusion Strike systems on these Genesect Vs, which is Nicholas's entire draw engine of this deck, are being shut off currently. So Nicholas has to deal with what is in the hand.
Oh, and it's nothing. He's 2 energy cards, a choice belt, and a Pokemon catcher. And something else to definitely note here, Nicholas prized his other Mew VMAX. He only plays 2 copies of the card. So he's going to try and conserve this Mew by utilizing Psychic Leap. The basic Mew's attack, shuffle it into the deck. It deals 70 damage, which is actually still enough to KO the Arceus V-Star.
Wow. So extremely heads-up play, I guess, here from Nicholas. Really just the only play that would keep him in the game here. So getting that knockout for Nicholas, and then also being able to take all of that damage off the board, force Brian into still not a bad position for Brian to be in, because at this point we could see boss plays, knocking out benched Pokemon, and just taking the advantage here over the game.
Those were maybe 2 of the best prizes Nicholas could have taken, a Mew VMAX and an Alessa's Sparkle. What Brian's going to be looking for here this turn, though, I feel like, is a boss's orders. And you could either target down the Mew V, or honestly, the Meloetta could be a little scary. Now, Brian knows that this Path to the Peak has really slowed the draw down from Nicholas's side, but if this Meloetta is sticking around, well, it does look like Brian will just take the KO. The opening here for Nicholas is going to be
sense.
the 4 Fusion Strike energies. And Quick Ball is the draw. And Nicholas plays the Pumpkaboo like you mentioned.
Yes, the Pumpkaboo is in the deck. I did not see it in the prize card, so here we go. It was right on the top, actually. So there we go, Pumpkaboo to use that Pumpkin Pit ability to bump the path to the Peak Stadium, which was the stadium that was holding all of those Fusion Strike systems hostage there, and not being able to actually utilize them for Nicholas is now out of play. So just kind of looking through the deck, seeing what options are still in the deck for Nicholas to play out. And it looks like we're going to have some other cards to play through before we see any sort of draw here.
This was an absolutely massive draw from Nicholas. He's got a tough call here. Is actually going to use the Alessa Sparkle before using any Fusion Strike systems. This does make it a little more difficult to draw into the last Fusion Strike energy, but hey, I mean, you've got Cram-O-Matic as a way to potentially find it. This is what Nicholas wants. He wants to pull off the one-hit knockout on this Arceus V-Star that has 310 hit points. In order to do it, he needs all 4 Fusion Strike energies and a damage modifier, and that Choice Belt is already sitting there on Meloetta.
Here we go, first Fusion Strike system. There is a Cram-O-Matic.
If this is a heads, he can get that Fusion Strike energy, and he does hit a heads.
It is a heads. Wow.
Right away, grabbing the Fusion Strike energy, putting it to hand, will almost certainly be attaching it to Mew VMAX for turn. And even though Brian was able to buy a turn or 2, slow Nicholas down a little bit, he has hit the combo of cards needed to get right back in this.
Those prize cards were so crucial to Nicholas. What was drawn off those prize cards? That is so wild. Here we go. Meloetta taking the knockout here on that active Arceus V-Star. And now Brian is left with just a 1 prize Pokemon in the active there to face up against, and still a V-Star taken out as well. Nicholas being at 2 prize cards left, which is a very dangerous situation for Brian to be in right now. Of course, searching out that path to the peak almost immediately. Brian cannot let Nicholas run away with this game, run away with the cards that he needs to draw to close up this game. So Brian just trying to hinder his ability to do that as much as possible.
Brian has a few different options here. That path to the peak will be one of them. Pumpkaboo has already been used, so now it'll have to be a hard stadium draw for Nicholas.
And I don't think we're going to see any scoop up nets in a Mew list here. All right. So we are playing the Roxanne now, initiated by Brian. So Nicholas is going to have 2 cards being drawn into hand on a path to the peak, which is a very scary situation for Nicholas to be in. And then Brian is going to be drawing into 6.
Okay, so I'm thinking there is something being brought up here by the judges talking to the players.
Okay.
Making sure everything is okay. I think there's a question about the turn that Nicholas used Psychic Leap. He cross-fusion striked for the Psychic Leap. If on the turn previous to that, did he use the Genesect attack? Did he copy Technoblast? Because if that's the case, he shouldn't have been able to attack.
See, you're right, because Technoblast actually takes away the ability for that Pokemon to attack again, unless you are able to retreat out of it and back into it to get rid of that effect.
So that's the question being brought to the attention of the players here by the judges. It looks like
they might.
Yeah, it looks like we're continuing on for now. Okay. So things are gonna keep playing out. We do see off of this Roxanne, Brian does find the Evolution Incense. Very nice to go get that Shady Dealings Inteleon.
All right, Shady Dealings Inteleon being able to search out 2 trainer cards for Brian here. So just absolutely stacking the hand with whatever cards he might need for this turn. Such a powerful ability there.
Scoop Up Net being 1 grab. This can reset the Inteleon, so you can utilize Shady Dealings on the next turn. And what Brian is going to try and set up here. Oh, did he get the double turbo? That is going to be a big thing to note here. But what he's going to try to set up is a knockout on this Meloetta.
There's
and then,
double turbo in hand.
Nice. Okay, so he wants to knock out this Meloetta, and then next turn, Boss's orders KO the Genesect V that is sitting on the bench for 2 prizes. And he'll be able to do that thanks to Quick Shooting. Right now, he's only dealing 180 damage, but if he can find Quick Shooting Inteleon next turn, that would be the way to get that extra little bit of a boost.
Yeah, I talked about it potentially being very relevant here, and it looks like it is going to be.
Heads up call there, Boo.
Yeah, hey. All right, here we go. Brian just searching through his discard pile right now, making sure he knows everything that is to his ability. Oh, all right. Here we go. We see the evolution into the Shady Dealings in Inteleon. We did see the scoop up net to put it back into hand, and then just being able to re-evolve it onto the bench there, grabbing an Ordinary Rod and a Level Ball as well. Level Ball also can search out a Drizzile to be able to search out another card, trainer card from the deck for Brian as well, but we are going to be seeing the Ordinary Rod being played right now, so choose one or both and shuffle up to 2 Pokemon or 2 basic energy cards back into your deck. It looks like Brian is just going to do the 2.
And filling the bench with the Manaphy, wants to play around that echoing horn. Manaphy's pretty useless in this matchup, but it's serving a great purpose right now to prevent any echoing horn plays.
That is very, very important. And just another thing that maybe, you know, even you can kind of overlook, but it just is a huge testament to how closely Brian is paying attention to this game, keeping track of all of the cards, not only in his discard pile, in his deck, but his opponent's cards and what has been revealed to him as well, because that is an extremely important thing when you're talking about your strategy and what is still potentially left for your opponent to react with against your board state.
So Nicholas does not draw into the stadium. He actually draws an Ultra Ball and will just utilize it to get Oricorio now going for the Max Miracle, dealing 130, setting up for a 2-hit knockout. Brian needs a lot this turn here in order to pull off the KO. We see that Boss's Orders in hand. That Oricorio will now be limiting how much damage Brian's able to do.
Yes, and both of our players now are at 2 prize cards left. This is the closest you can get in a game 3. All right, we are seeing the Drizzile evolution here into a Shady Dealings. 1 trainer card here for Brian off of there. And there's not really that much left here, Chip, for him to even draw into. But it looks like
just a few cards remaining.
Going to see a Level Ball being chosen off of that Drizzile.
Has Quick Ball in hand as well. Collapse Stadium. I think that is a fine card to discard at this point. Your Path to the Peak is what's doing work, so let's get rid of that.
Keep it that way, especially since Nicholas only has 4 Pokemon on the bench currently anyway, so it really wouldn't have an effect. And of course, as we said before, Brian wants to keep those 5 Pokemon on his bench as well, so it doesn't really make much sense to play the Collapse Stadium. So very good discard card there for Brian if he wants to.
So Brian can't quite win with just Quick Shooting because Quick Shooting deals the 20. Boss's Orders could bring up the Genesect, and then he only is hitting it for 160 damage thanks to Oricorio and double Turbo Energy. So that would put him 10 damage short of picking up the KO, which could be circumvented by something like a Choice Belt, but Brian is actually not playing any copies of that card in the deck.
That is so unfortunate here. We would have had to seen the Quick Shooting come out a little bit earlier there and start those pings earlier in the matchup to be able to, you know, wrap this game up, unfortunately for Brian, but you can't reverse here. You can't go backwards. So we are seeing the Boss's Order here on the Genesect V, but like Chip just said, with all of those damage modifiers, we would not see the knockout here.
Not just yet. It's going to come down to, I mean, this is still a great play from Brian. Brian's, let's not get it wrong, in an excellent spot. Nicholas has a 0-card hand with a Path to the Peak in play. So Quick Shooting, pings 20, 160 damage now from the Trinity Nova, 180 on the Genesect, just 10 HP remaining. Nicholas draws for turn. What is it?
Is
not worth playing, and Nicholas sees the writing on the wall, scoops the cards up, and Brian Kim will be the victor here in round 12.
Incredibly close game here for both of our players, but I think they both played extremely well. They played to all of their outs. On both sides, we saw so many scenarios where one was leading so heavily and then it just totally changed as well, which is so cool to see for these players, these decks, how much recovery they have, even if you have sort of a difficult start You can pick things up, especially if you're keeping track of everything in the matchup. You know your 60-card list extremely well, and you just play to all of your outs.
Extremely well played from Brian. A great way to keep the composure, fight back, win that match, taking a 2-1 victory. Nicholas, you know, it's a little tough break. That's kind of the nature of VMAX. Sometimes the flips go your way.
Yes.
Sometimes your draws can be a little clunky. We saw that, I think, quite a bit from Nick in